afternoon. I am glad to open this festive event, festive concert in the framework of the conference Sounds on Jerusalem, Aesthetics, Ethics, Hermeneutics. We talked today a lot about the Psalms as text, basically. So we will experience a little bit of the Psalms as a performative event. Because after all, the Psalms were designed from the get-go to be performed, not to be read, also to be read, but mostly to be performed. And we decided to select for you a very short set of examples of how Psalms were performed in different traditions, both Jewish and Christian, in different contexts, synagogues, homes, private parties, churches. And I think that you're up for a very nice experience. So me and my colleague, Professor Cohen, who will follow up with a few words of introduction of herself, will be extremely succinct to let the music do what music knows what to do, which is usually better than talking. I would just say that in the Jewish tradition, Psalms abound everywhere, in every aspect of life. Mostly, Psalms are discussed as part of the liturgy, which of course is the main framework for their performance. The Psalms are performed also outside the liturgy, both in paraliturgical events, of which we are going to listen to one example today, and mostly in diverse private and family rituals. We live in the age of internet, so there is a website called alleluia.com, which is all about Psalms. So you can check that place. It's a lot of fun. I will read, with your permission, in Hebrew, because I couldn't translate this so good into English. And those who want the English version, I will give that to you after the concert. So the website regarding the performance of Psalms has this to say: מנהג ישראל קדושים לקרוא ולהרבות באמירת מזמורי התהילים. בסגולתם פועלת ישועות ונחמות, בכל עת ובכל מזמור שיאמר. על כן, ראוי לקרוא בכל סדר שיבחרו אדם, ובכל מספר של מזמור, אחד או כמה מזמורים. עם זאת, ודאי יש תוספת ברכה וסגולה נבחרה, בסדר ובמזמורים שנקבעו על ידי חכמי ישראל ברוחב בינתם וקדושתם בתורה. אז ההמלצה היא לביצוע, the recommendation is to perform the Psalms in every occasion, in every time, and I just listed three events: celebratory Psalms, usually in connection with the Jewish holidays. We have Psalms which I would say are performed in events which can be defined redemptive. We heard that concept today. So there are 10 מזמורי תהילים לתיקון הברית, 10 Psalms for, this is very difficult to translate, I couldn't find, but you understand me. לימוד התהילים מועיל מאוד לתיקון הברית במקרה הלילה. ומי שחס וחלילה נכשל בחטא נורא זה, יטבול באותו יום ויאמר 10 מזמורי תהילים, וכאן באים הרשימה וכו' וכו'. כמובן, also, of course, the Psalms are pledges, sometimes used as magical formulae for periods of drought, of sickness, and certainly for the disease. We will hear in the program today a selection of liturgical psalms performed by two cantors that I have the privilege to introduce. And Ruth is going to introduce the Jerusalem Baroque Orchestra and the music from the Baroque period. We are going to hear songs for the Sabbath liturgy, which are among the simplest formulae of sounds. These are very short melodies that consist of two parts. So the parallelismus of the sound itself is reflected in the musical performance. The Sephardic and Oriental traditions have kept a series of formulae, melodic formulae, that in some ways also reflect the te'amim, the Masoretic accents of the biblical text. So the te'amim of the Teilim were not totally lost, as sometimes people tend to think. They are still alive, and we are going to listen to that at the beginning of our program. Then there are songs that are performed in holidays. May I draw your attention to La Menatzeach al Hagitit L'Asaf, Psalm 81, which in the Sephardic and Oriental traditions are performed at the very beginning of the evening services of Rosh Hashanah. So when you get in Rosh Hashanah all well dressed up and you go to the synagogue, what you hear is this festive sound, which has a very special melody, and we're going to hear this melody in two variants. One from the Western Mediterranean, from Morocco and Algeria, and one from the Eastern Mediterranean, from Syria, and you will be able to hear the similarities and the differences between both of them. The third possibility for performing songs are with original melodies. Composers, Jewish composers, have set up songs, sometimes to existing melodies from other songs, and sometimes to original compositions. And it's not only in the art music tradition of the West that we have compositions and songs, but also in the Eastern tradition. And we will have two examples. We are going to hear the Psalm 122 according to the set of the setting of the Jerusalemite synagogue composer Mordechai Halfon from the 1940s, and also a setting by Rabbi David Buzaglo of Psalm 144, which is the psalm recited in Motzei Shabbat at the outset of the Sabbath. So finally, to end, a couple of words. Roni Ish Ran, who is both a singer and a composer, is the founder of the ensemble Shacharit, and he is its musical director. He grew up here in the neighborhoods of Jerusalem, learning from the old people the traditions of the Syrian and Sephardic Jews. He is a graduate from the Academy of Music and Dance, and he teaches at the School for Oriental Music and Dance here in Jerusalem, and he is also one of the writers of the program of the Ministry of Education called Shirim Veshorashim, Songs and Roots, which is the teaching of piyutim, of liturgical melodies to the little children in Israel. A very interesting program of which Roni is part of the professional staff. Maimon Cohen is a disciple of the masters who studied with Rabbi David Buzaglo of blessed memory, the greatest singer and poet of Moroccan Jewry in the second half of the 20th century. In 1996, Maimon started to study with his teacher and spiritual mentor, Rabbi Chaim Bitton, and with Rabbi Meir Atiyah, the art of the Moroccan Andalusian music, Al-Ala. He also studied voice with Daniel Hendrickson, leader of the Jerusalem's Great Synagogue Choir. This is an interesting detail. He is an instructor in the Singing Communities project of the Avichai Foundation, teaching the art of the piyut throughout Israel, and since 2002, he is featured as a soloist of the Israeli Andalusian Orchestra. I would like to invite Professor Ruta Cohen to present the, how should I say, the western part of the program.
That is Christian, in that deepest space.
Okay, you say that.
I don't know as much as you know.
You want me to laugh? I will laugh.
You want. Okay. So, good afternoon. As much as Tehillim, as we have just heard, the book of Psalms, was important in the Jewish world, it became early on the backbone of the Christian liturgy, even more than in the parallel Jewish world, which was kind of reacting to what happened in the Christian one. Allocating particular psalms to the various office hours, it was regulated by systematic psalmodic formulae, enabling the servicing clergy to recite long and short psalms and verses in an efficient and uniform way. I can't explain how it was done, but that's very important, why it became so important and so prevalent. A millennia-long tradition of reciting the Psalms in that formulaic way was rejuvenated with the advance of Reformation and Counter-Reformation in Western Europe. In the Reformist churches, Psalms were translated to the vernacular, be it German, English, or Dutch. Sometimes they were paraphrased or even rhymed so as to fit current aesthetic and genres. In the Counter-Reformist churches, they were embellished, polyphonized, even dramatized. Later, though not in Rome, likewise vernacularized, paraphrased, and rhymed. Affected by opera and related secular genres since the beginning of the 17th century, the psalm settings were further individualized, featuring soloist elements and the personal emotions of their devoted bearers. These qualities characterize all the 5 Christian pieces performed this afternoon, which also share strong affiliation with Venice, the free spirit city and most important music center of the 17th century. The opera, the new medium of the century, flourished in Venice alongside hundreds of churches and fraternities, all demanding their particular musical stuff. And up in the west northern corner, there was also the Jewish ghetto. About its role in this repertoire, perhaps Edwin, you will say a few words later, but all of this is important for this rather fortuitous combination that we have for tonight. So the western part, the Christian part of the concert begins, and the whole concert ends with Benedetto Marcello's Salmi, also the latest and most fully developed in this repertoire tonight, setting a vernacular paraphrase of the original. A contemporary of Bach and Handel, Marcello cast the first Salmo, Salmo XV, in the program in a cantata-like structure, featuring chamber ensemble of voice alto and continuo and cello obbligato. The continuo is played by the harpsichord. The closing piece in this afternoon, Salmo X, is even a richer one. The psalm is number 11, is the difference between the Vulgata and the Hebrew one. למנצח לדוד באדוני חסיתי, איך תאמרו לנפשי, נודי הרחם ציפור, or in the translation of Uri, for the lead prayer for David. In the Lord I sheltered, how could you say to me, off to the hills like a bird? Which unfolds as a series of rich and intricate madrigals, allowing various tempi portraying the text in motley ways. So bear in mind until the very end the whole thing. In between, we will listen to 2 Monteverdi's solo pieces, which this illustrious old composer composed in the 1640s for the San Marco Cathedral, in which he served as the Kapellmeister since 1630. Claudio Monteverdi composed in all the genres of his time, many of which he shaped, if not innovated. This Laudate Dominum in Sanctis Eius, from his latest collection, Selva Morale e Spirituale, sets the entire Psalm 150, which all of you know. Hallelujah, Hallelujah בקודשו, Hallelujah ברכי העוזו, Hallelujah בגבורותיו, Hallelujah בגודלו. Praise God in his holy place, praise him in the vault of his power, which then enumerates, as you all remember, the various musical instruments allegedly played in the temple in Jerusalem. Take a shofar, nevel v'chino, tzilzilei shama, tzilzilei teruah, all of them appeared, of course. Sung in Latin, it is composed for high female or male voice, soprano or tenor, far away from the more lugubrious world of traditional psalmody. The secular world of opera and madrigal strongly beat here. The meter, the dance rhythm, the musical embellishment, the actual portrayal of making music from music, a kind of ars musica, or self-referential music, to use terms that literary scholars here are familiar with. So the music refers to itself. Notice the change in matter when the singer arrives at omni spiritus laudate, with a very long melisma on the syllable, laudate, which lasts forever. Monteverdi's second piece, Laudate Dominum Omnes Gentes, Psalm 170, the shortest in the Bible, is the overflowing of the soul who cannot contain its feeling of Hallel, Laudate, bursting with a series of ornate melismas reverberated by the accompaniment. Heinrich Schütz, a court composer in Dresden, composed his Kleine Geistliche Konzert during the 30 Years' War, when scarcity of musical forces, both instruments and musicians, prevailed. Hence the modest, chamber-like character of these pieces. Schütz, who learned with the Venetian masters, he visited the city twice for that purpose, imported their innovations to the Lutheran German church. The first piece, Bring Herr dem Herrn, Habul Adonai Bnei Elim, Habul Adonai Kavod Le'oz, number 29, of course, the opening of one of the most noisiest chapters in the Bible, deploys only the first two verses in a festive recitative style, alternating them with a repeated, joyful Alleluia refrain. The second piece, Schaffe in mir Gott ein reines Herz, Lev tahor brali Elohim v'ruach hadasha, very, very Lutheran in its ideas and in its emphasis, is a duo for soprano and tenor. Maybe some of you will recall later renditions of Bach, of similar such texts. Is a duo for soprano and tenor, again a genre well developed by Monteverdi. But the German language renders a very different spirit, a Lutheran spirit, declarative, triumphant, easy to follow, educative. The interlacing of these pieces with the Jewish ones, and I wish to thank my dear colleague, Professor Sirussi, for conceiving it so. This, I believe, and also for producing the concert, creates a fascinating combination which should yield, I believe, unexpected connections and juxtapositions. I wish you all a very pleasant and edifying listening, and adding before introducing, just a few words about some Jewish connections of the Marcello Salmo, especially these two ones that were chosen for this program, which contains several Jewish remnants of the way. Just a moment. I want to introduce the very renowned chamber, Jerusalem chamber Baroque orchestra, and it's worth mentioning the names here, not just in the leaflets, but you have here Adaya Peled, soprano, Anna Marike Evers, alto, Doron Florentin, tenor, Guy Peltz, bass, Yotam Haran, cello, and of course, David Shemer, harpsichord, and the director of the orchestra.
Just two words about the work of Benedetto Marcello, which is one of my predecessors. He was not only a very successful and important composer in Venice, but he was an ethnomusicologist. And he wanted to base some of his 50 songs, which are, as Ruth already mentioned, in Italian. That is, it's a modern rendition, modern reworking of the songs in Italian for the Venetian synagogues. He wanted to invest his compositions with authenticity. What would be more authentic than going to the 4 synagogues of Venice and record some of the melodies in music notation writing them down actually in all ecclesiastical notation, which was all for the period of Marcello, writing the music with the help of Hebrew printers from right to left, and then using the tunes for his composition. So we are going to hear two traditional tunes which are going to be performed as Marcello transcribed them from oral traditions in Venice before or in between the pieces where they are quoted. The first one is they are both Ashkenazi melodies. I apologize to the non-Ashkenazi audience here, but the first one is a tune that many of you will recognize, is the Maus Sur Yeshuati, the piyut for Hanukkah. That is a melody that is very well known here in Israel, that was introduced as an antidote to the very Lutheran melody that we used to sing until this very day. And the second melody is based, really, this one, Yes on Teilim, Betzet Israel Mitzrayim, again a traditional Ashkenazi melody from Venice. So you're listening to Jewish music from the late 17th, early 18th century, in between Christian compositions. So I think that this brings together this conference also from the sonoric point of view into a total harmony. Thank you very much.
שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בסבר, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולה תבוא.
מזמור לדוד, אבו לאדוני בן אלים, אבו לאדוני כבוד ועוד, אבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים אל הכבוד יראים, אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים. וישבר אדוני את ארזי לבנון, וירפידם כמו עגל, לבנון וסריון כמו בן רמים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קדש. כל אדוני יחולל עיילות, ויחשוף יערות ובהיכלו. כולו אומר כבוד אדוני למבול ישב. וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
למנצח על הגיתית לאסף, הרנינו לאלוהים עוזנו, הריעו לאלוהי יעקב, שאו זמרה ותנו טוב, כינור רעים עם נבל, תקעו בחודש שופר, בכסה ליום חגנו, כי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט לאלוהי יעקב עדות, ביוסף שמו, בצאתו על ארץ מצרים, שפת לא ידעתי אשמע, הסירותי מסבן שכמו, כפיו מדוד תעבור נער צרה, קראת ואכל לצקה, אענך בסתר רעם, אבחונך על מריב הסלע.
למנצח על הגיתית לאסף, הרנינו לאלוהים עוזנו, הריעו לאלוהי יעקב, שאו זמרה ותנו טוב, כינור נעים עם נבל, תקעו בחודש שופר, בכסה ליום חגנו, כי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט לאלוהי יעקב, עדות ביוסף שמו, בצאתו על ארץ מצרים, שפת לא ידעתי אשמע, הסירותי מסבן שכמו, כפיו מדוד תעבורנה, בצרה קראת ואכל לצקה, אענך בסתר רעם, אבחונך על מריבה סלע, שמע עמי ואעיד אבך, ישראל תשמע לי, לא יהיה בך אל זר, ולא תשתחוה לאלוהיך, אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, אמרך מארץ מצרים, הרחב פיך ואמלא